Okay, let's get started creating a little bit of summer fun. So what you want to do first is you're going to paint this top 2/3 of your circle with light buttermilk. You could use bleach sand, just something light, but not white, okay? And so I will be back when I get this painted in, and we'll start with the background technique. Okay, so I have my, I'm going to call it my water area. It could be water, it could be sky. Painted in with light buttermilk. It doesn't have to be opaque. You can still see some of the background through it. It's okay. And we're going to take like a baby wipe or a hand wipe and make sure it's wet. If it's not wet, I've got some old dried out ones and they're going to work just fine because I stuck them in my water bucket and got them wet. So I'm going to actually pick up a little bit more water with it. I'm kind of bunching it up. And I've put out a puddle of Laguna on my palette. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that Laguna, kind of work it into that little baby wipe a little bit. And what I want to do is I want to kind of pat and blend this into the background. Okay, and I'm going to kind of do this all over this area. So I'm going to pick up a little bit more water, a little bit more Laguna, and I'm just going to blend this all over. I want it to be kind of wet, kind of juicy, and go all the way down to the bottom here. Try to wipe out any real harsh marks. But anyway, and if you get it into this area that you haven't painted yet, that's okay. So we're just going to pat blend this all over. You want it to be juicy. And so you can still see that light buttermilk in the background. Okay, so I'm going to take out some mermaid tail, which is a little bit darker, blue-green. And I'm still going to be using the same baby wipe. I'm going to pick up water again, and I'm going to kind of make that mermaid tail a little juicy, and I'm going to spread that around, kind of keeping it to the left side mostly. Again, don't worry if you get it on. And I might come along the lower edge here. So I kind of want to blend this out a little bit more. Trying not to get too many lines in there. But as you can see, as it blends and spreads, it kind of gets rid of those lines itself. Okay, so now I'm going to go even darker, and I'm going to go with Royal Navy, which is going to be okay because we have all this blue-green in our little baby wipe or hand wipe. So I'm going to pick up, make this juicy, and I'm going to keep this over in the left side also. Okay, I think I want to put some more over here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some warm white. Still going to be using this blue saturated handy wipe, guess they used to be called that a long time ago. And I'm just going to pat this in over into the right side. Now, I kind of lost my blue over here, so I'm going to come back with some mermaid tail. So you just kind of blend it back and forth. Okay, now I'm going to throw this thing away finally. But what I want to do is I want to dip my fingers in the water. And I'm going to flick water on this because I want it to do little spots, little bleed, where I'm going to come back with a towel, a paper towel, and I'm going to blot those spots off. It's looking pretty good. I'm just going to lightly blot. Okay. So I really kind of like that. It's not too dark. We'll come along and we'll float some shading and deepen that up. But for right now, we want this to dry. All right, so I've dried this now. So I'm going to go ahead and float some shading. Let me get some of my flow improver going. I'm going to use a large brush. This is a 3/4 inch. And I'm going to come in with some Royal Navy. But I'm also going to pick up just a touch of mermaid tail so it's not strictly blue, so that it has some of that nice green in there. And I'm just going to float on this edge on the left side. And what I want to do is I want to walk that color into the center a little bit, not all the way in the center, but I think you can see what I'm doing. Just darkening up this side edge. So picking up a little bit more of that Royal Navy mermaid tail mix. And I'll go across the top. And I'm not going to walk out into the piece too terrible much. So we're just going to go all the way around the top, all the way around the sky or the water area. And I'm also going to come along the sand line. All right. So I feel like I need a little bit more color over here in the left side. So I'm going to grab another baby wipe. It's dry. So I'm going to wet it. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of that mermaid tail. Kind of juicy. I'm just going to add a little bit more color. Just because I want to. So you see, you can always go back and play with it. And because it's juicy, it's going to blend out again. Yeah, that's better. Okay. All right. So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to dry it, and then we'll work on our sand. All right. I'm really liking that. We're going to paint the sandy area with a coat or two of antique white. So here's where you just kind of cover up that whatever got onto your sand. And it really doesn't have to be opaque either. We put a lot of stuff on top of it. But use a large brush. I can say that, I really can. Use a large brush so that you don't spend all day base coating this in. Okay, so when I get done basting this in, I'm going to put the pattern on for the flip-flops and the sun, and I'll be back. Okay, I'm not sure how well you can see that, but I do have the pattern on for the flip-flops and for the sun. We're going to work on the sun first. So what we want to do is we want to base our sun in, including all the little rays, with moon yellow. You notice I didn't put the pattern on for the glasses or the face or anything, because we need to work on it first before we put his glasses on. And this is probably going to take a couple coats, unless we're lucky. So, since watching me base coat, I'll be back when I have my sun based in. Okay, so I have my sun painted in. I'm going to go through and do the circle with my chalk pencil. I'm just going to put that pattern line on there again. You could go ahead and use your pattern and graphite if you wanted to. But I just want to get that round part of the sun back on there. Or as round as I can get it. And then I'm going to have my pattern out and just kind of figure out which rays are on top of it. Which rays, okay? I can hear you saying, okay. And it really doesn't matter. I mean, obviously, since I just did that one wrong. Okay, and I did that one wrong. So you can do them any way you want. But I just wanted to kind of get them on there like I put them in the pattern. Once you get it going the right way, it's a little easier. I say that hesitantly. Because I could still screw it up. And if I didn't tell you, you'd never know. But I'm like most of you, I tell when I mess up. All right, cool. So I have most of those on there the right way. And if they're not the right way, I'll never tell. So what I want to do first is I want to float a little bit of a highlight in the tips of each of these rays with warm white. I'm trying to find a spot on my palette that's not blue. I could always use a new a new palette paper. But what fun would that be? So I'm just going to go around and let's get a little closer. Tuck a little warm white highlight into the tip of each of those rays. Start it about halfway down the ray and then tuck it up in the top, and then I walk it back down the other side. So just highlight these tips of each ray. I'll probably fast forward through this. Now, I'm not going to float a highlight in this, the center part of the sun. I want to dry brush that highlight, and it's going to stay mainly in the right side, but that's going to be done with warm white also. So get out your favorite brush that you like to dry brush with. I don't know what your technique might be, but whatever it is, do the technique that you're most comfortable with. So I'm going to dry brush warm white in this right side of the sun. It's going to be kind of skinny at the top and get wider through the center. Okay, it's kind of like a crescent shaped. Let me dry brush a little bit more. I think I want to drag it through the center just a little bit more. It's the sun after all. We need it to be bright. So I almost filled up that half right there. And you can go ahead and wash out that brush. What I'd like to do now is go back to my rays, and I'm going to float some honey brown at the base of each ray. Now this isn't going to be our final float of color there, so don't panic because it doesn't look like the picture, the finished picture. Apparently I picked up some warm white. I got a really muted color of honey brown. So we'll try that again. Okay. Hopefully we'll do better this time. Well, it's a little better, but it'll do. And you can see I'm floating each ray as its own little piece. So I want to start up the side a little bit and then come next to the round part of the sun and walk it back up the side. And I like to mop and soften floats. So each one of those little guys gets softened a little bit, unless you're really good at floating softly. Then you can get away without doing that. Kind of wishing I wouldn't have put as many rays on the sun right now, but oh well. He's going to look cute no matter how many he has. So I'll probably do another fast forward moment here. All right. So let's go ahead. I want to use a larger brush, and I'm going to float honey brown around the inside edge of that center of the sun. So I'm going to go ahead and use my 3/4 inch. Okay. So as I float and it gets over those where I floated the rays, it gives it a kind of a more definite edge there, which is good. Got some blue in my mop brush, but we'll work with it. All right. It's looking pretty much like a sun. So I want to make some of these rays a little bit darker than the other ones. So I'm actually going to take a round brush and a nice wash of honey brown, and I'm just going to wash over a few of these rays just to darken them up a little bit. Make them a little different than the rays that are around them. And it's not every other one. It might be one here, two there, that kind of thing. And yes, it's going right over that highlight we did, but it'll be okay. See, as you get to create with me, you get to see different steps I go through to kind of come up with this piece. So I'm liking that. Kind of gives it a little more character. Let's see, maybe a couple more. And I think that'll be enough. Okay, so we need to let this dry, and then we're going to come in and add some of the orange sun color to it. All right, so we are going to add some orange to this, and I'm going to do that with some spiced pumpkin. I love that color. It's a really nice orange color. And I'm just using my 1/2 inch flat. I'm going to do spiced pumpkin all the way around the center of the sun on the rays. And you don't have to do each one individually. You can just do one continuous float. Just blend it out nice so you don't get an orange line, but you get a nice soft float. See, like that's an orange line. So I'm going to soften it a little bit. And we're also going to float this on the inside of the sun. All right, that looks pretty good. Looks a little more intense now. So again, with the 1/2 inch flat and spiced pumpkin, I'm just going to go around the inside edge. I wanted the brown underneath just to give me a little bit darker shade. But I'm doing the orange. I want to put the orange on here just to pop the sun up. Pop the sunny up. All right. All right. We're getting there. I say all right a lot. Sorry. It's my but of course I say too. Old habits are hard to break. Okay. So there, that's looking pretty good. And what I want to do is I want to come back in with a little red. All right, I'm going to use Country Red. I'm going to blend it out really well so it's a nice soft red float. And I'm going to float this on each of the rays, and it's going to be to separate the rays from each other and then across the bottom. So let's see, this guy, we're going to put just a little, we need it to be, the rays to be a little more intense, to show a little bit more heat. So you don't have to try to hurry this along. And I would use my mop brush a lot. So each little ray is going to get this float of very well blended out Country Red. So many layers of color, but they all serve a purpose. little bit more red in my pile. So probably fast forward through the rest of this, just because you don't need to watch me do it and hear me talk the whole time. It's very repetitive. All right, we're going to take a liner brush. This one is a 2, and I want to paint the sunglasses with country red. We should be able to get away with 1 coat. You just take your time. All right, he's looking cute. So while we let that dry, I want to go back to my rays. And what I want to do is I want to do a little comma stroke. So I'm going to use a really small brush, liner brush. This is a 6/0. And I'm going to pick up some spiced pumpkin. And I'm just going to add a very tiny little stroke on one side of each ray. And it doesn't always have to be the same side. If you just want it to be the same side, that's fine. But they just needed to stand out a little bit more. Try to keep your hand out of your sunglasses. And if you don't like doing strokes, just do a line. I think that defines them a little bit more. What do you think? And there's really no rhyme or reason to which side I'm working on. So I'll let you get ahead a little bit. Very good. English. All right. Yeah, I think that helped a whole lot. So our glasses should be dry. What we want to do is we want to give our little son some nice cheeks. Okay. So he's going to have some pinkish orange cheeks. And they're going to sit right about in the bottom of his eyeglasses. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to pick up some spiced pumpkin on my dry brush. I'm going to dry brush them in. And then I'm going to pick up some country red, probably 1 to 1. So I kind of get a more corally orange, more on the red side, less on the orange side, okay? And I want these to be nice and soft. So I'm really scrubbing the paint out of this brush. Okay. And I'm actually going to have it come down below the glasses too. And you can go right over the glasses. Okay. I think that looks pretty good. So let's see if we can get us another cheek that looks pretty good. I think we have success. That looks pretty cute, if I say so myself. So our glasses, we need to line some highlighting on our glasses. And I'm going to do that with a number 4 liner. I'm going to pick up some country red. And I'm going to lighten it up with a little warm white. So I get kind of a pink. I don't water it down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of dry brush this lighter pink color onto my glasses. I'm going to do this lower edge here. It's kind of going to go almost all over. Whoops. Apparently I decided I needed to put some on his cheek. I'm going to come off the side and go all the way around this bottom. And we'll come in and lighten this up a little bit too. So across this bridge here. I'm going to come from that side again and go across the top. I'm going to turn this guy this way so I can pull that across the top. All right. We need to float some shading and line some shading on our glasses. I'm going to do that with deep burgundy. First, I'm going to float some, and that's going to go on these side edges a little bit, just on that flat part. And then I'm going to take my liner brush and I'm going to just straight deep burgundy. I'm going to line some on the bottom of the nose bridge. Take it down underneath a little bit, under this, on these lower edges. And then I'm going to go on the top of the nose bridge. And we also want to go kind of down the side of the nose bridge. Now I know it looks like a little square in there. It'll be okay. So let's come back with some warm white, just straight warm white. And we'll do a little highlighting. So I'm going to highlight across the bottom, lower edge, and then I'm going to go in the center here. And then I also want to go on the top, probably starting about halfway across. And kind of fading out when I get to this side edge, okay? So about halfway across. And just kind of fade it out into that side edge. I think that's probably enough of that. So let's see. I think I'm going to experiment with a little bit different mouth. I think I want it to be just a little bigger. So we're going to need some lamp black. I'm going to line the mouth using my tiny liner. Let me get a little closer. It's going to start thin. When I get across the bottom, I'm going to flatten out a little bit and then back up to a point. All right. I think that looks pretty good. And then we're going to do the eyes. So they're going to start. I'm going to start in the center and pull like a comma stroke. And then I'm going to add just a couple eyelashes. So she ends up with like 3 eyelashes. Pick up a little more paint. So like a comma stroke. And then add a couple more lashes. I kind of ran out of paint. All right, she's a happy sun. Now we need to let that dry a little bit, but I feel like my rays need to have a little bit of yellow put back in them. So if I can get moon yellow out of this bottle, I'm just going to wash a little bit of moon yellow on those rays. Just make a really thin wash and put some of that yellow back in there. And maybe a little bit thicker wash. Let's see. Oh, that might be a little thick. But I don't know. I just feel like they were disconnected a little bit. And it doesn't even have to go over the complete ray. If you lose color in something like this is what you can do. You can just come back with a bit of a wash and wash some of that color back in there. It doesn't take much just to yellow them back up again. I have to do this a lot with pumpkins. Sometimes they lose their orange. You can do it with flowers if you're painting flowers. All right. That feels a little more connected. You probably can't tell. So our glasses are on top of the sun. So what I want to do is I want to take a very well blended out float of spiced pumpkin, and I'm going to float above and below the glasses just to put them on top. It's not a real strong float. And let's go below. Your mouth should be dry enough to do this. We're almost done with the sun. Yeah, that helped. So now these are sunglasses. So what we need to do is decide what color we want our sunglasses to be, the lenses. Don't really want gray. I think we will just come in with the Laguna, very well blended out. Just make a wash of Laguna, and we're just going to fill in these sunglasses with the tint of Laguna. Got a little pattern there I want to take off. All right. So there, she's got some lightly tinted sunglasses on. Now we'll come back when this wash is dry and we'll do a little float of Laguna across the top. Okay? But for right now, we're going to let them dry. So we need to paint some flip-flops. So I am going to paint, I think I want Irish moss. All right. So I think I'm going to do this guy with Irish moss, and I'm going to make this one pink. So you're just going to base in this whole guy, but not this strap, with Irish moss. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be back. All right, so I've got this one painted in Irish moss. I'm going to paint the other one with dragon fruit, just to bring some pink into this. We're going to go back to our sunglasses. Remember I mentioned we needed to do a little float with Laguna straight, blend it out a little bit like a regular float. And we're just going to go across the top. Just darken the top a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and take the back end of one of my brushes and some warm white. And I'm just going to add a little dot to the sides of the sunglasses. But then your thing is you have to keep your hands out of it. Just a little dot there. Finish them off. All right, so I have the sandals painted in, but what I want to do is I want to work on this sand first. So the sand has been painted in with antique white. So what I want to do is I want to stipple all over the sand. You can use whatever brush you like to stipple with. I'm going to use the one that I dry brush with, but I'm going to stipple all over with desert sand. You also want to get out some cocoa, not to drink, the color cocoa, and warm white. I just threw away my palette, so I have to get out some more warm white. And just so you know, my pink shoe needs another coat of dragon fruit. We'll take care of that in a little bit. So I'm going to get out my brush. It's a fairly large one. It's a Dynasty 200. It's the brushes I like to dry brush with. And I'm going to stipple desert sand all over the sand. I'm not going to completely wipe out the antique white, but I do want to have pretty good coverage. So where I have the most paint when I have the most paint in my brush, I'm going to start at the top and kind of work my way down. If you get it on your shoes, it'll be okay. And I know it's not a big color difference, but it's enough. Whoops, let's get that off of there. And I actually think there's another line that comes through here that I didn't put on. Let me look. Yeah. So I'm just going to kind of sketch that. It's a continuation of this one. Kind of important. So it does get stippled all over. But because it's stippled, you'll still be able to see the antique white in the background. So you guessed it. This is going to be another fast forward moment for you. And I don't know if you noticed, I did mention it, that as I load my brush, where I want the most paint, which is going to be on the top of those little mounds and stuff of sand, that's where I'm going to start, so that I leave more paint there. Okay? So now I'll be quiet and we'll stipple the rest of our sand. All right, so I'm not going to wash this brush out. I'm just going to pick up some of that cocoa, kind of pounce it on my palette. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this darker color around this outside edge. And don't worry, we'll come back and shade too, but we just want to get some dark sand in here. Darker sand. It's kind of hard to see for me because of the glare of the wet surface. I'm going to try not to make it like a straight line. Kind of vary the width and everything. So I'm going around this outside edge first. And I'm going to come in and go next to the shoes. It's not going to look good yet. It's going through puberty, okay? And then behind the little mounds of sand. So there's another one over here. Let's go next to this pink shoe. Get as close as you can, but it doesn't have to be right next to it because we'll float. okay. I know it looks a little weird, but it'll be okay. We're going to not wash out our brush, just wipe it out. Pick up some warm white. And this, we're going to start stippling it very lightly across the top of the sand. And if you get up above that sand line, that's okay. I want you to think like a pile of sand. Okay, you're working that lighter color back into the dark color that we applied, just kind of blending them together. You can pick up some desert sand and then pick up your warm white so that it's not going on quite so bright, just to tone it down a little bit. But you do want to do this kind of all over. So this is a process. You're going to go back and forth. And, you may want to put some dark back into it, or you may want to lighten it even more. It's not something that there's a formula for. It's more a matter of taste and what looks pleasing to you. Okay. I think that looks pretty darn good myself. So I am going to wash my brush out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take up my pattern, and I'm going to lay it over the sky a little bit. Most of it will get covered. And now what I want to do is I want to spatter the sand with some warm white. So I'm going to thin down some warm white. I'm going to use a large flat brush. I'm going to blot that brush a little bit. And then I'm going to take another, this is how I spatter. Now you could do it with a toothbrush, or you could do it with a spatter tool, whatever works for you. And yes, it's going to get on the shoes, but it's okay. We can wipe it off. So I'm going to take the brush that has the paint on it on the top, and I'm just going to bang the ferrules together. Try to do, not the ferrules, the wooden handle. Try to not bang the ferrules together because you'll just bend them up. So there we go. We got that. I'm not moving the paper. I'm going to kind of clean up my little shoes a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin down some cocoa, that darker brownie color, and I'm going to spatter with cocoa. Again, going to take this off and remove some of the spatters from my shoes. And then I'm going to let this dry, and then we'll come back and we'll float some shading on it. All right, so we are going to float some very well blended out burnt umber on our sand. I'm going to do it with my larger brush so that I get a nice wide float. So make it nice and soft. Let's start on the outside edge and go around the bottom. Okay. Then we're going to let's go next to the shoes. It's a little heavy. You're going to stop when you get to this bottom edge here. So you don't want to go around it because this shoe is stuck in the sand. And let's do the other side. Again, with the mop brush, I like to soften things out. And then we just have one side on the pink shoe. And I want to tuck a little bit of this burnt umber shading above these little mounds. So don't make it a straight float, just kind of sketch it in there. Tap and blend it in there. Okay. Just a couple more places. All right, cool. I just want to do one more thing. I want to take my brush that I stippled with, and I'm going to pick up some warm white, not very much, and I just want to highlight the tops of these little mounds a little bit. It's not a lot of warm white, okay? You pounce most of it out and wipe it out on your towel behind your piece, or whatever you put behind your piece. I just want to highlight those tops a little bit, not a whole lot. Sometimes it's not even the whole mound. All right, I'm going to cover my sky up again, and I am going to spatter just a little bit of burnt umber. So not a lot. Just add some dark speckles in there. All right, so I think we can call our sand kind of done. Let me rough up this little top edge a little bit over here. It looks a little too straight. Okay. So now what we can do is we can go back to our shoes. Now I need to give my pink sandal another coat of dragon fruit. So I'll be back. All right. This area on this side of the sky is a little bit darker than where our sun was. So I'm going to take some mermaid tail, blend it out, and I'm going to float shading on the sky around my flip-flops. Do that before I put all the work in on my flip-flops. We just want them to stand out away from the sky. I do want to deepen this little area right here. Lock that color up a little bit. All right. So I did say we are going to come back to these rays that are behind the shoe. So we're just going to float a little bit of burnt umber on those to stick them behind the shoe. It's a little too much burnt umber. In fact, I'm really going to have to mop that out. There we go. All right, so let's work on our flip-flops. And here, I want you to dig through your stencil stash and pick out a stencil that has some flowers or leaves or something like that. And then a stencil like zigzags or stripes, or like this is Harlequin. So I'm going to use these just to add some interest to my flip-flops. So I'm going to dry brush some floral design. Not dry brush, I'm going to stencil some floral design on my pink flip-flop with dragon fruit plus warm white. So I'm going to lighten up my dragon fruit so I can add this design to the back. And just kind of try not to get it out on the blue, but if you do, just wipe it off or on the sand. So I just want to add this flower design to my flip-flops. We haven't painted the straps yet, so if you get up in the straps, it's okay. And you can use whatever stencil you want. I just thought the pink would lend itself well to the flowers. And this is a Tim Holtz. He's got several ones that would be just right for this. But you could stencil dots or whatever you wanted on it. So, doesn't that look kind of beachy? I think it looks great. So, and I'll decide on my green shoe in a bit. All right, I like that a lot. So I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll do some work on our pink shoe. We are going to dry brush some highlighting on our shoe. I'm going to do that with warm white plus a touch of dragon fruit. Now that's different than what we stenciled with, because with the stencil we did dragon fruit plus warm white, so we got more dragon fruit. This one we want to have more warm white. So I'm going to pick up warm white, and then I'm going to pick up a little bit of dragon fruit, and I'm going to see. This is kind of a big piece, so it's hard to get it all on camera without going into my palette. So I'm going to dry brush in this top here. You don't want to dry brush so much you lose your design. And through the center. And down here. Okay, now I'm going to float shading. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that with that deep burgundy. That way we're not pulling in too many other colors. Shading's going to go all the way around the outside edge against the sand and on either side of the strap. And that's going to be a float of deep burgundy. Okay. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to go on the other side of this strap. Right. Oh, I wish I had flip-flops like this. Something this pretty. And let's go on the inside of this strap. Now this is a V area, so I'm going to walk that color down a little bit. And let's go here. I need to go across this sand, but I also need to come up this side. And that one's going to be kind of jaggedy to kind of keep the rough edge of the sand. Again, a couple V areas, so walk the color out. I do believe this flip-flop is looking pretty good. I'm going to go around the top edge. Like I could use a little bit more color. And let's go finish around the top edge. All right. I like those flip-flops. I do think that we need to deepen up the shading here around the bottom a little bit. So I'm going to continue with deep burgundy, but I'm going to pick up a little burnt umber. So I'm going to deepen that shading a little bit on this lower edge. Where this shoe is stuck in the sand. Just feel like it needed to be a little bit darker. And I think I'm going to pop some of this little bit darker color right here into the toe area. All right, so we need to decide what color we're going to paint our strap. And I think I'm going to go ahead and paint it yellow. So I'm going to get out my moon yellow. So I'm just going to go ahead and paint in my strap with moon yellow, and I'll be back. All right, so I got the strap painted in with a couple of coats of moon yellow. So what we want to do now is we want to dry brush some highlighting on the strap, and we're going to do that with warm white. Okay. Now, I hope you should put the pattern on so you know where this little curve is, where the thong curves down to attach to the shoe. Didn't mention that, did I? Well, I did now. So I'm going to dry brush this highlighting just on this top section, not on the curve that attaches to the shoe. And I also want to scrub a little bit in the little toe part, you know, the part that always breaks when you have your favorite thongs. Now, I don't know about you, but my thongs when I was young had like a little design on the strap part. So I don't want it to show up a whole lot. I just want there to be a hint of it there. So I'm going to take my liner brush. This one is the number 4. And I'm just going to do that kind of V little shape that my thongs always had on them. Not that these are going to be technically correct thongs or anything. But I just wanted to give the straps some interest too. I don't know, do you remember that? Or am I the only one? Remember they used to be so cheap? We could get them for 50 cents a pair. It was great. You could have a pair in every color. So just little V's with warm white in your liner brush. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to float a highlight on the toe part because I want the V's to dry. I'm going to float that highlight with warm white. So just in the top. And did you see? I think I was on. All right. And I'm going to dry these V's just so I can get to work on the highlighting on the straps. So the straps are going to get a highlight across the top edge and the bottom edge. So you see the V's kind of get covered, but not all the way. You can still see them. So this float is going to go all the way down to where that strap flips. I'm going to do the outside edges first, and then I'll come back and do the inside. So while I let that dry, I'm going to get out some honey brown, and I'm going to float some shading, and it's going to go on the little part that's turned under and attached to the shoe. So I'm going to set that turn in first on both sides. It's looking more and more like a flip-flop with every move. I'm going to float this in the bottom of the little toe thing. And I'm also going to float it under the toe thing. And then I want to go all the way around that bottom, those bottom pieces. Now I can go back and finish the float of the warm white on the inside edge of those straps. Okay, getting closer by the minute. Now, I don't know about your flip-flops, but my flip-flops always had a little circle thing, kind of like what your toe thing was, that held these straps on. So what I want to do is, if you have a little stencil that's circles, we can go ahead and do that, or you can just float a little circle on there. So I'm just gonna float a little. I'm gonna do a C-stroke one way, and then I'll come back and do a C-stroke the other way to make my little circle. Not too hard. All right. So I am going to come back with some honey brown, a float, and I'm going to float this little edge right here with honey brown just to help it turn around. Okay. Just a nice light little float of honey brown. I'm going to fill in those little circles that I added. Guess they're not really circles. They're more like ovals. Now there was always like a little ridge. So I'm going to go in and add that little ridge to the straps. I know, getting way involved, aren't we? And that's just done with a float of honey brown. So I'm going to start over here and just add this little ridge. Nothing too spectacular. But every little detail helps. Now you should still be able to see those little V's. If not, it's okay. It was just good practice making those little V's then. All right. So we need to deepen some shading. And I'm going to do that with burnt umber. And one of the first places I'm going to go is I'm going to go on the shoe next to the sand. I want that a little deeper than that mix that we did was. And I'm also going to tuck this up underneath the straps. Deepen that a little bit. And let's go above the straps with burnt umber. Even around that little toe thing. I want to deepen it here and around the bottom. Okay, let's in here and around the bottom of the strap. All right. Let me back up just a little bit. So what I want to do now is I want to float some burnt umber to deepen under this toe thing and in these turns. Okay. Let's take our liner brush I think I'm going to use my little one, my little 6/0. And I'm going to thin down some burnt umber. And I'm going to outline those little knobs that hold the straps to the shoe. Just a nice thin line of burnt umber. And then we can touch just a float of honey brown in the bottom of those. Just a little touch of color. Not a lot. All right. So, let me look at this some more. I think I want to darken the shading around this top edge with burnt umber also. Just to finish it off a little more, make it a little more definite. It looks good with that deep burgundy underneath. But I'm going to tell you that so you'll believe me and do it. All right. I think we can go ahead and maybe add just a touch more dry brush highlighting on the shoe, like in the toe area. And maybe a little in the center, and that's with warm white. And I think we can call this guy done. So now we need to go over to our green one. And I'm still going back and forth whether I want to use the whatever this is called. I had the name earlier, Harlequin, or if I want to go zigzag. And I think I might go zigzag. So if you have a little zigzag stamp, that'd be great. And I am going to zigzag on this with some dark green. See if I can find it. Yeah, here's Hauser Dark. So I'm just going to add some zigzag stripes with Hauser Dark. And you can stencil those on. And again, you want to try to keep it off the sand and off the water. If you get it in the straps, it'll be okay. And whatever you decide you want to put on your flip-flop will be just fine, as long as you add some kind of design to add some interest to this guy. I have to take it down a little bit more when I'm done. Cool. I know I have to take it up a little, and I also need to take it down a little. So do that. I got some on my sun. Just wipe it off with a little wet brush. And let's go ahead and add another stripe down here at the bottom. All right, I think that's going to look cute. I am going to dry brush highlighting on this flip-flop with Margarita. Yeah, that's better. That's not showing up too terrible much, so let's add just a touch of moon yellow to it. So just a touch of moon yellow to your margarita, just to lighten it up a little bit. We'll try this again. Yeah, that's better. Now we can see it. And also through here. Okay. Oh, so the same drill. We're going to float shading on our flip flop. It's going to go all the way around the flop and above and below the straps. We're going to do that with Hauser Dark Green. So let's go under the strap here. Around the part that's twisted under. Let's go to the other side and do that side. I'm going to go ahead and go from the sand on up. Oh, we'll see if we can make this flip-flop look good too. If not, at least we'll have one good looking one. So I'm going to go down this side and then across the bottom. And I have a little bit of pink here. It'll be okay. I can come back and stipple a little bit of warm white across there. Fix that up right quick. All right, we need to go above the strap. And around the little toe piece. And then we need to go across the top, all around the top edge. Okay. I need to walk this color up here a little bit. It's a very deep V. And let's also deepen it right here. Okay, looking pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and baste the strap in with mermaid tail, and I'll be back. All right, so I was looking at these flip-flops, and they just didn't look dimensional to me, so they looked flat. And so I tried a little experiment, and I liked the way it turned out. So what I did on this pink one is I took my liner brush and I mixed a little bit of dragon fruit with a little bit of deep burgundy, made a wash. And I started up on the tippy top right here on the point of my brush, and I came down and around. And so I painted like a side edge on the flip-flop, and then I also came down here and did it. And then I took a little bit of warm white and lightened up that mix and just lined a little bit of a highlight on there. And I like it better. Now, if you don't want to do that, it's fine. I don't mind at all. But it was just bothering me that they were so flat. So we'll do something like that on this guy too. But for right now, I need to go back and give another coat of mermaid tail onto my straps. Alrighty, so we're going to dry brush some highlighting on our straps. Going to do that with Laguna. So a little bit, smudge it on that toe piece. We're going to put it in this little bottom area here. And then across this top wide part. Oops. Oh well, it'll be okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and put that little design on our straps like we did the yellow straps. Just going to thin down some Laguna and pick up a little warm white just to lighten it up, just a touch. And we're going to do those little V's again. So just to give it that, it's just the way I remember my flip-flops from when I was a kid. Now keep in mind, I was a kid a long time ago. It'll be okay. And so we'll go down this side. And again, these aren't going to show up a lot when we get done shading and highlighting. But you'll know you did them. And you can say these are like authentic flip-flops because they have that little V design on them. So we are going to float some highlighting, and we're going to do it in the top of this toe thing. It's going to be with Laguna plus a touch of warm white. Okay. So I'm going to go in the top here. And then I'm going to go on this from the toe thing down and around the side. And I'll do the other side too. Okay. I'm also going to go ahead and paint in those little buttons that hold the straps onto the shoes, onto the soles. And that's with Laguna Plus Warm White. I'm just going to go ahead and paint them in this time. Okay, so now I can go back and highlight the other side. Cool, this one's going a little faster, right? Because we already know what we're doing. I'm going to float some shading with Royal Navy. Use that since the very beginning. So that's going to go in the bottom of the little toe thing. It's going to go under the toe thing. It's a technical term, the toe thing. I looked it up on one of my breaks. Not really. So I'm going to take and float on this turned underside. And I also want to float a little bit in this bottom rounded edge of the turned side. And it's okay that we're getting Royal Navy on our little button thing. It'll be just fine. I also want to add that little edge to the top of the straps with a float of Royal Navy. I'm just making that little edge. And you know, as it turns under, you're not going to be able to see that. So don't take it all the way down to here. And then we need to do it on the other side too. We're going to float a little bit of this Royal Navy in the bottom of those little buttons. That's why it didn't matter if you got it on there. And then we're going to take our little liner brush and just line a shadow with Royal Navy under those buttons. Not going to go all the way around. because in fact, I'm going to go back and change these buttons. Paint those in with warm white. Kind of cover up that burnt umber that I put in there. Just because I didn't like the way it looked. So you see, you can change it. We'll just let that dry. And then we'll come back and work on that. So again, I need to deepen the shading just a little bit. So I'm going to pick up some Royal Navy and some burnt umber. I want to make a little bit deeper. So I'm going to do that right in here. And on the other side. I'm going to do it under this top little button. And I think that's about it. So let's go back to these buttons. And we can float just a little burnt umber in the bottom of them. And I think we're just going to call them done now. So our flip-flop itself, we need to deepen some of the shading there. So I'm just going to pick up Hauser dark green and a touch of burnt umber just to make it a little bit deeper. And I'm going to float that in these two V areas. To deepen those up a little bit. So both sides. And deepen this up a little bit. I'm going to deepen in this area here. Keep trying to get that blue. Alrighty. And then we also want to float that along the bottom of the shoe next to the sand. Okay. Now we want to add that side edge to this shoe. And I'm going to do that with Irish moss and just a touch of Hauser dark, kind of a wash. I need it to be just a little darker than Irish moss, but not as dark as Hauser dark. And again, I'm just going to start, I'm going to make this one so I can see this side. So I'm going to start at the tippy top here on the point of my brush. And as I come down and around, I'm going to flatten that brush out a little bit to give me that side edge. This is probably going to take a couple coats because of the sun rays and the sand. So you don't have to water it down as much. But you don't go around the straps. You stop at the straps. And then you come down and add the edge below the straps. So I'm going to deepen this up a little bit. And the highlight on it is going to help. Okay, and so now I want to take some straight Irish moss, a little margarita, and I'm just going to line a little highlight on that side edge here. And I'm going to start up here and line it down a little too low here. I'm going to line it down this side edge a little bit. Hit or miss is good. All right, so if you need to, you can pick up some warm white. And I told you I had that little bit of pink here. I'm just going to tap over it with my brush that I like to stipple with. And let's tip it a little bit over here. All right. So we could get fancier and we could add seashells and all that stuff, but that would make it like a 15-hour piece. I think I want to add, you always look at stuff. I'm going to add a little warm white highlight to the side of this tote thing on the yellow, and I'm going to pick up Laguna, and I'll add a little one on that one too. And down here. So all these little touches. You kind of look at it and say, yep, it needs that. So I think this looks pretty good. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of prejudiced anyway. So now what we can do is we can let this dry and put the pattern on for our lettering. All right, so I know it's kind of hard to see, but I do have the pattern on for the lettering. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to use my number 4 liner, and I'm going to do that with lamp black. And what I want to do is I want to load my brush. I'm going to thin it down, thin the paint down, but not a lot. And then I'm going to kind of flatten my liner brush out so that I have a thicker tip. Sometimes if you can get it just right, you can actually get a square tip that's closer to square than it was the last time. And so I'm going to go ahead and paint the lettering, and I'll probably fast forward through it. But one thing to keep in mind is you don't have to do it in a hurry. You don't have to do each letter, every piece of it. You can go through and do parts of it and break it up. So just make it easy on yourself and take your time. Right, we're getting there. Now we got to go down here and do this other line. Okay, so now I need to go put the stirrups on this last little bit of lettering that I did. They look so much better when you get the stirrups on them. All right. So we have our lettering on. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get out some mermaid tail. And on the lettering that's on top of the sky area, which would be all of Summer Sun and a little bit of Flip Flop, I'm going to line a shadow. It's going to be a wash of mermaid tail, and that's going to go to the left and top of each letter. And that's just going to help to pop it off the background a little bit. So, same brush. I'm going to make a wash of mermaid tail and flatten it out again. We're just going to go to the top. I'm going to start at the top. And if there's a left side, it's going to get a shadow on it next to it. And I think you can see that kind of helps to pop the letters off the background. So they look like they're sitting on top of it, not, you know, I don't know what I mean. Anyway. And if you don't want to do this, it's okay. So I'll fast forward through this too. Down to this. I think I'll be okay putting the mermaid tail on the green, but I'm going to come and what's on the brown, I'm going to use burnt umber for that. Oh, I forgot a little stirrup or two. Let me do that. So I'm going to skip that letter for just a minute. So this is going to stop when I get to the sand line. Let's go back and do this D. All right, so now I need to get out some burnt umber, and I'm going to thin that down to a wash, and I'm going to finish lining shadows on the sand area. The blue just wouldn't look right. I probably could have gone burnt umber on the whole thing, but I didn't, so. So this is what we do. Okay. At least there's fewer letters to do this with. Alrighty. So let's back up and take a look at this and see. I'm just not, I like it the way it is, but I'm wondering if it could just use a nice little border, because borders always make people stop and stare at your painting a little longer than they normally would. So let me think on it and I'll be back. All right, so this is going to be one of those things that you can do or you cannot do. But I'm a big believer in borders. Okay, so I took a number 12 flat and I just loaded it with straight warm white. And I started adding little, they're not really checks, around the edge of the piece. They are longer and shorter. Some of them are a little see-through. Let me get a little closer here. So just something to make your eyes stop before it leaves the piece. So try not to make them all the same height, if you know what I mean. You can make really short ones and medium ones. They don't have to be opaque. And here again, you don't have to do this. You could do, if you wanted to do a border, you could do just a squiggly line or something. And there's even a little space in between each one. So just, I tried to think of something that would be kind of lend itself well to this piece. And I think this will do it just fine. So I'm just going to continue to go on around this piece. And I think that's the last thing we need to do to it. And then we can call it done. All right, I'm going to back up a little bit. And I think I like it. So we're going to call this guy done. I appreciate y'all being here and painting with me. And I hope that you have a summer full of sun and fun. I'll see you next time.